Jaghatai Khan, Primarch of the 5th Legion, the White Scars, is the most underrated character in all of Warhammer 40K, and out of all the Primarchs, he's his own man. The consummate warrior, the Great Khan united his world and gave a new life to its people, and became the Emperor of Chogoris by his own hand. The Khan of Khans, the Khagan. None could even begin to question the capability of the Warhawk of Chogoris, and few could even approach it, for the Khan was second to none, and stood in no one's shadow, except possibly the brother that the Emperor elevated above all others, Horus Lupercal. But that was neither because of Horus's nature, nor his actions. And in my mind, Jaghatai may have just been a better pick for War Master than his bald brother Horus. He certainly had the disposition for it, and the focus, and the galaxy would have been the better off had he been. So why did the most capable Primarch get overlooked? Because for whatever reason, the Emperor just did not trust him. He even counseled Malcador the Sigillite to keep an eye on the Khan. For the main takeaway that his brothers, and his father, got from him was uncertainty. The Khan was a mystery, a total enigma. And while he made sense to his own people, the Imperium saw the folks of Chogoris as barbarians. And this is a trope the writers over at Black Library took directly from Robert E. Howard's Conan stories. It was often the case that Conan the Cimmerian was seen as a barbarian by the people of the towns and cities he'd traveled to, but in the end, it was always shown that Conan the Wild Man from the frozen north was much more civilized, and the men of the cities may have had civilization, but they lacked civility, and were the savages. And the same goes for Khan. The true shame is that the Khan was treated that way not just by his father, but by his brothers as well. For it was the Khan's very nature, his essence, his heart, his indomitable spirit, that saved the Imperium of Man. The Khans and the White Scars' counterattack at the Lionsgate spaceport, in my mind, was selflessly throwing themselves into the meat grinder to buy more time for the Emperor and his strike force, and keep Malcador and the Golden Throne ultimately from being overrun by the traitors, which would have flooded Terra with demons. Khan is one of the ultimate heroes of the Loyalist forces, sacrificing everything, being smashed on the anvil of war, saving the Imperium. He should be held up beside Sanguinius, Dorn, and Vulcan, and held to be a hero on their level, for he certainly is. But that seed of doubt that his father had about him, the mistrust his brothers had for him, were enough to sully his reputation, enough that his father, the Emperor of Mankind, upon hearing that Alpharius and the Alpha Legion joined Horus in his rebellion, said that the Khan was the most likely to turn to Horus next. The Khan did all the work, remained true to the Imperium, and gave everything for it. Yet he got none of the glory, and instead of praise, he got mistrust and scorn. So why is that? I think it comes down to a few things, but one in particular, and it is a bit hard to face it, but it comes down to honor. That the culture of Chogoris was built on honor, of nobility, of reputation, pride, and fortitude. Not of edifices, but of the individual. It was a culture where a man said what he meant, and he stood by what he said. Subterfuge and intrigue were built into the very fabric of the Imperium, but the Khan was a much more straightforward guy than that. He didn't fit in, and so everyone who met him assumed he was some dark, secretive, scheming guy, when really he was walking around judging them. It was a great irony, but Khan could tell what was what, and he might not have been fully aware of how others looked at him, but he kept how he felt about others guarded. Khan's straight up, honest, face value sort of practicality just didn't really mesh with the Imperium, an empire built on lies and deceit. We see this illustrated very well in the Khan's Primarch novel, The Warhawk of Chogoris. When he first meets Malcador on his first trip to Terra, he notes that he's supposed to be some huge deal, yet nobody is even throwing a parade or anything, though he's told of the great celebrations for his brothers, especially Horus, which lasted months. So Khan noted right away that they were treating him differently. The Great Crusade was underway at that point, and they needed to focus on war, not celebratory wastes of resources, but the standard was set. Khan did not get the same treatment as his brothers. He was treated like chopped liver. But it is when he's given his fleet and he meets the Mechanicus engineers who are maintaining his Gloriana-class starship, the mighty vessel that would become known as the Swordstorm, that we first see him use logic to strip away the veneer of lies and ignorance the Imperium is built upon. He tells the Magos to make his ship faster. And this cyborg is about to blow a gasket. Its circuits fuming because it just cannot compute, cannot comprehend what he's suggesting. This scene just totally solidifies just what kind of person the Khan is. He's sharp, he's willful, and he's all about cutting right through the crap and getting to the heart of a matter. From Warhawk of Chogoris. The starship was a conurbation, bounded and bombarded by the metallic sweeps of docking tethers and surrounded by clouds of welder drones. Most decks were exposed to the void, yet to be cocooned in the heavy ablative plates that would keep them secure from all but the very mightiest void weapons. Constructor servitors floated amid the lattices of steel, bumping up against half-completed bulkheads before applying their payloads. Spider-legged priests of Mars scuttled across the yawning cavities, shunting binaric commands to one another as they assessed, engaged, and commanded. It had taken them 2 hours to pilot the shuttle from stern to prow, threading along the precipices and chambers amid a shimmering corona of energy flares. The Terran hosts had gone at a leisurely pace, showing off everything they could. The official from the palace, now revealed as Ert-Ek Slamavar, Major General of the 1st Division, Corps Logistica, was clearly proud of what had been accomplished. "Perhaps the finest one yet," he said, leaning closer to the real viewer. "We've had time to perfect the pattern. There's a reason, my lord, why they're called Gloriana." Gaihun scratched at his cheek. He was getting hungry. The shuttle pivoted on an invisible axis and began to climb, gliding past row after row of semi-completed decks. At times, a long avenue would open up, giving a glimpse into the vessel's structural heart. The complexity was formidable. The Khan observed it all. He said nothing, but his eyes, sunk deep within his drawn face, took everything in. Gaihun knew better than to speak to him when he was in such a mood. The Primarch was studying the ship just as he studied every weapon he possessed, searching for weaknesses, appraising it for strength, considering where it might be employed. "These sections are within a few weeks of being finished," Slavomar announced as the shuttle rose up through the circular opening, exposing the spars of a great hall standing like ribs against the starry void. "In time, this will be your strategium, Lord, and above that, the command bridge itself." The Khan leaned forwards in his seat, placing rangy elbows on his knees. A greater chamber slowly swam into view. Domed with armor glass and studded with concentric pillar rings, mechanicum lifters were pirouetting over the center line, many hauling cogitator cores ripe for depositing into the pits below. There must have been thousands of menials laboring within this single space, most vaguely humanoid, but others bearing the arcane ironwork improvements of the Red Planet. The shuttle's deck shuddered, as if they had been buffeted by an atmospheric disturbance, and the view screens briefly crackled with static. "A temporary oxygen gravity blister," Slavomar explained, "to allow a closer look. Will you be pleased to descend, Lord?" The Khan grunted assent, still studying the superstructure around them, peering at the beams and skeletal bracings like a priest pulling apart the flesh of an augur sacrifice. The shuttle pulled down towards the flood-lit deck level, now swathed in a trembling teardrop of breathable air maintained at a survivable temperature, and with the worst of the background radiation filtered out. Its legs extended and clouds of steam spilled over the matte gray plates below. Waiting at the bottom of the unfurling ramp was a delegation from the Mechanicum. A phalanx of 20 Skitarii protectors bearing long weapon staves accompanied a limping Magus Dominus, clad in crimson livery. The Magus was a crab-like slitherer with a distended and ribbed thorax, overhung with a gaggle of knife-thin mechadendrites. Beside him was a humanoid figure in steel gray, her face a smooth mirrored mask. The Khan descended from the shuttle, followed by Gaihun and the Terran entourage, his long hair lifted from his shoulders in the low gravity, and the steel-faced woman bowed before him. "Be welcome here, fifth iteration of the Omnissiah's will," she intoned. "I am the intermediary of Gilithium Vophoix, creator of this vessel." The Khan looked down at the creature, not bothering to hide his distaste. Chogoris was a world of few machines, and since discovering the Imperium, little had been more unnerving to the Chogorians than realizing the extent to which variant strains of humanity permitted themselves to be enfolded within the chuntering sarcophagi of ironwork devices. "You made this?" the Primarch asked. "Galithium Vophoix and his priests, and his manufactoria. It is no small endeavor. Close to 5% of the entire output of Sacred Mars may be consumed by the creation of a Gloriana war vessel for the duration of its construction." The Magus inclined what passed for its head, and long trails of binaric indicators on rolls of parchment wobbled. "We trust," said the Steel Woman, "that you appreciate its capabilities." Only then did the Khan turn to her. "What is your name?" "It does not matter, Lord." "Tell me your name." "I no longer have one." The Khan exhaled wearily. "You people." "Lord?" The Khan turned to Gaihun. "Impressed, Noyan Khan?" he asked. Gaihun shrugged. "I only see its bones." "I also." He looked the Steel Woman in what passed for her eyes. "We're savages, you understand? A year ago, none of us had seen a combustion engine. Forgive us." The intermediary bowed, and her smooth face modified into a human proximate smile gesture. "There is nothing to forgive, Lord." "Oh, but there is," said the Khan. He turned away from her and addressed the Magus directly. "Because you're going to remake this one. You're going to rip out that drivetrain and put in a new one. I'm going to show you what I need, and you're going to do it all within a standard year." The Magus's mandibles withdrew, clawing back to its body husk. The intermediary tried to interject, but was ignored. "What was the purpose of this fly-through?" the Khan asked. "To awe us? Phew, you iron slug. It takes more than that. Gut an empire from its gizzard to its neck, then come to me and treat as an equal. I've learned fast since my father pulled me from the grass, and what you show me makes my stomach turn. You've done this a dozen times and think that this horse tamer will roll over and lap up your warmed-up designs like a grateful cur? No, he won't. Now listen." The Khan drew closer, and the Magus visibly shrank back. Gaihun watched closely, enjoying the spectacle. "I want double the plasma capacity on those primary manifolds. I want the boost lines shortened. I don't give an Adu's shit for warp drives, for they are the matter of dreams and mumbling, but I want speed from my real space engines. I want this thing to boost from nothing to full burn in the time it takes for one of my chosen to draw their curved blade. Noyan Khan?" Gaihun pulled his tulwar from its scabbard and slashed it in towards the intermediary's neck, catching her off guard and making her freeze with the killing edge lodged a millimeter under her chin. "That fast," said the Khan, never looking anywhere else but into the multiple eyes of the Magus. "I want to be moving before my enemies have even given thought to my intentions. I want to be moving before the gods themselves have registered my presence in the heavens. You will do all this. You will remake this vessel, and you will do it perfectly within 12 of these lunar months." The Magus flustered. "But it is impossible, Lord," the intermediary objected, stiltedly, conscious of the curved steel at her chin. Still, the Primarch didn't look at her. "All things are possible," the Khan said. "Is it not the lesson of my father's empire? You will do it, or you will find my ignorant kindred landed on the Red Planet, and they tend to break what they don't understand." The Magus sent some kind of hurried signal to his speaker. "If you have a schema in mind," she started. I do, he said. Very much so. And once this one is done, you'll do the same for the entire fleet under my command. What use is a single good sword when we have the galaxy laid before us? I wish to have a storm of them. I tell you, Priest of Mars, this is our creed, and the galaxy has seen nothing like it yet. Enable it, or show me one of your foul kind who can. There was a pause. The Magus was clearly communicating, perhaps with its simulacrum helper, or perhaps with something else. The Skitarii never so much as twitched. Gaihun held position calmly, enjoying himself. Finally, the intermediary indicated assent. I have preliminary clearance, she said, her flat voice sounding close to annoyance. These things will be done. To return to the matter of this day, all we require of you now, at this juncture, is a name for this vessel. The Khan gestured to Gaihun to stand down, and the toll wire was withdrawn. Then the Primarch turned away, strolling out towards the center of the great unfurnished command bridge. He looked up at the semi-completed terraces and the exposed matter of the great supportive beams. Above them all glittered the force field holding in the breathable air. Beyond that was emptiness, a frigid waste lit by a harsh sun. For a while the Primarch gave no answer. He looked over his future domain, a starborn citadel created for a conqueror, and the old covetousness kindled across his tight features. Already there was something there, desire perhaps. We'll wait until it's done, he said. The name will come. The Khan straight up said, just work on the engine and modify it. The ship isn't fast enough for me. This is something the Mechanicus had never even considered. The tech magus just wants to explain how the Imperium is run on tech that must be certified archaeotechnology from an SDC, that new advancements unguided by SDCs were heretical, etc. But the Khan just tells the guy, hey, I'm the son of your Omnissiah, and I command you to make this happen for me. If it can be done, then you'll do it, as I wish it done. My voice is my father's voice, and his voice supersedes any traditions or protocols you must follow. He explains it all, using perfect logic, which couldn't be argued with at all. He used the Mechanicus' whole shtick against it, and he got a faster flagship out of it. Khan circumvented miles of Imperial red tape and obstinance with a simple, quick slice from the logic sword, decapitating the cyber argument before it could even be constructed in the mind of the tech magus. Khan saw the bureaucracy of the Imperium firsthand, and realized immediately how to outplay it. Khan didn't play by their rules. Khan didn't care for their system, but he knew that he had no choice but to join the Imperium of his father. To do otherwise, well, it would have been to jeopardize Chogorian and its people. Plus, Jaghatai saw the practicality of being part of the Imperium itself, and of his father's vision. But the stagnation of thinking slapped him hard, and when he was out among the stars leading his legion of the Star Hunters on the Emperor's Great Crusade, he rebranded and started to implement his own Chogorian culture and tactics throughout the legion. The Terrans had developed their own thing before he was found, but Khan didn't feel any real solidarity with that, and the Star Hunters became the White Scars. And since they had their own culture, their own traditions, and their own spiritual beliefs already, the White Scars became the focus of ire and mistrust throughout the legions. Horus, however, saw the value in the Khan, and how similar they were as individuals. The Khan knew the Lupercal looked at him as an equal, or at least seemed to on the surface. But Sanguinius was the first of the brothers to track the Khan down, and he invited Jaghatai aboard his flagship to come and parley with him and get to know each other. And this was something I didn't see coming and didn't necessarily like, but Sanguinius was kind of a jerk. Khan went to meet his brother and noted that the angel was charisma and beauty made flesh, literally angelic, and he was cranking his powers up to 11 to try to influence Jaghatai's mindset, and the Khan saw right through it. Sanguinius was being extremely manipulative and felt justified, and his reason for their meeting was all a front because Sanguinius had his own agenda. He just cared about trying to get one of his brothers on board with his cause. So the Blood Angels knew that the Council of Nicaea, or at least a reckoning, was coming, and that the use of psychers was going to be a controversial issue, and had been. Sanguinius and his legion's librarians were psychers, and didn't want to give up their powers, so he's trying to get Khan to throw in with him, Magnus and the others who have psychers in their legions. And since the Khan's Stormseers were using psychic powers, and it was baked into their culture, Sanguinius argued that the White Scars came down on their side, and so he put the mission on Jaghatai to try to sway Horus and his legion over to their side, since Horus had the most influence with the Emperor. Jaghatai left feeling manipulated, and knew that he'd entered a great game, and that he was a tool being used. It left my stomach in knots, especially since it was Sanguinius who was trying to manipulate the Khan. Khan was too much of a straight-up dude for the Imperium. He was too true to himself, to his culture, and to his ideals for the Emperor, the Imperium, or the Primarchs. Still, though he was not trusted, the Khan was extremely capable. He did more than most Primarchs, often with less. He did what was expected of him, and what his father ordered him to do, whether he agreed with it or not. But the main thing about the Khan that made him so gritty to his brothers and his father, that made nobody trust him, was this. The Khan did not want to be played. He didn't want to participate in subterfuge, intrigue, or any of that crap. Khan was a warrior, plain and simple, and that's why out of all of his brothers, Khan was closest with Horus. Sanguinius tried to manipulate him right off the bat. Magnus too, though he was Khan's other friend, out of all the brothers. They both thought that they could be persuasive with the Khan simply because they saw him as a barbarian, and themselves as highly cultured. Ironically, to extreme levels, Magnus even lectures the Khan on his barbarian beliefs, his faith that gods and demons exist. Khan is so smooth, he's just like, that's cool, keep messing with the warp and you'll see. The culture of Chogoris knows what's up, so even the most beloved of all the Primarchs, the great angel Sanguinius, tried to play the Khan, and his good friend Magnus treated him like an uncultured cur that needed to grow up and stop believing in fairy tales. That all set a horrible precedent for him. How could he trust anyone? His father didn't even seem to notice when he came to Terra to be received and revealed to the Imperium for the first time. His brothers trying to manipulate him, even if he agreed with their cause, still set poorly with him. It grated on his morals and his character, something his brothers couldn't understand and didn't even notice as they were too busy underestimating him. Then there was Malkador, who was pretty straight up with the Khan and was basically like, yeah, you're a weapon, a tool, you were manufactured for a reason, and the scattering of you may have changed how you were nurtured, but your basic nature is to make war in your father's name, so get to it. It's crazy how he just is disregarded right from the start and treated like a nobody, even though he's a Primarch, and Primarch level accomplishments are expected of him. He still gets treated like chopped liver. But it was Horus and his bloated ego after Eleanor that made Khan see clearly. He and his legion, his star hunters, the White Scars, were on their own. They always had been, and they always would be. For Khan noticed that Horus did not even pretend to approach him as an equal. Horus came to see Khan before they both hit the road and went on to prosecute the Great Crusade, conquering more worlds and forcing imperial compliance, and he let Khan know where they stand. Jaghatai was not greeted by his brother, his equal, his friend, his fellow Primarch. He was greeted by a Horus who had been ascended, raised in rank above all his brothers to War Master, and Horus made it clear that Jaghatai, you have always been my bro, but soon I'm going to be coming to you and telling you to jump, and I need to know right now that your response will be, how high? Khan played it off, which let his legion slip off the chain and kind of get away from both Horus and the Emperor. And he had nearly the entire strength of the 5th Legion gathered. They went into the void, searching for their prey, the many worlds on their list of planets set to be conquered. Khan knew he was at odds with the Emperor's vision, but he also knew that he was going to become at odds with Horus Lupercal as well, were he to continue operating closely with him and the Sons of Horus, the 16th Legion. For at that moment, Khan knew one thing, and one thing above all others. He'd proven to be extremely effective, and alongside the Sons of Horus, the White Scars were the best orc-slaying force in the galaxy. In fact, Khan soloed an entire orc mob, saving many Sons of Horus and White Scars Marines from dying, and he didn't even take a scratch. He moved so fast it was a blur that not even the Astartes could make out with their superhuman vision. And his legion got pigeonholed into the Imperium's orc terminators. While Horus and his legion ascended and became rock stars, Khan did as much of the work as Horus, and in most ways had the better temperament to be War Master. But the Emperor just didn't trust him. We even have the Emperor telling Malcador that the Khan is not to be trusted, and that his legion would be next to fall, after Malcador broke it to him that the Alpha Legion had turned traitor. So Khan was so loyal, and yet he got shit on the entire time. Never recognized for his accomplishments, always overutilized and pushed to his limits, always testing his legion's endurance, and yet he and his White Scars continued to fight on, never slowing down. For out of all the Primarchs, the Khagan was his own man. His loyalty came to humanity, to Chogoris, to his legion, far above any loyalty to institutions and dictators. And what was the Imperium of Man other than the greatest institution ever conceived? And what was his father other than Space Stalin? Khan left into the void with the plan to outrun anyone who came after him, to go do his job, but to not be in contact with anyone. He was the guy who should have been Employee of the Month, but his co-worker got it instead and was promoted to manager above him. Yet this manager's the guy who always comes to him because the manager can't get things done on his own. Khan saw right through the implementation of this new middle management position, and just decided to keep his head down and go about his job, hoping not to get messed with. Which would come back to bite him in the end, as the White Scars' isolationism put them in a compromised position when the heresy broke out. The fog of war was thick, both across the galaxy where the lines were blurred as to who was who and what side anyone was truly on, and within their own legion, where many wanted to side with Horus. Some actually managed to do so, and others staged mutinies throughout the fleet. But that is a story for a future video on the White Scars Legion, for the Khan and the Emperor.